Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Tracy Rogers, and I will be your host or your moderator for the webinar. So let's just go ahead and get started with a couple of housekeeping tips before we actually dive into our content. So first off, on your screen you should see a number of these icons, and each of these will tell you what you need to do for any given action that you want to take. The most important to pay attention to are the Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, go ahead and click on the Q&A icon and type your question in. We'll make sure that we get it answered by the end of today's session. And then if you're having any technical questions, go ahead and click on the question mark, and someone on our side will be sure to help you. So with that, I am very excited today to have Nationwide with us. Today, the title of the webinar is Nationwide IT, Using Data to Increase Efficiency. And we have Jason Harmer with us today. Jason Harmer is passionate about data visualization, dashboard design, and creating action through data-driven decision making. Jason joined Nationwide in 2007, and his current role is as an IT portfolio coordinator, where he has helped transition his business unit to Tableau desktop and server. As a Tableau desktop certified professional, he currently leads a nationwide user group for the Des Moines campus, and he helps co-lead the Des Moines Tableau user group, open to all in the central Iowa area. He joined the DAMA Iowa board in 2016, and he recently started his second year in Iowa's State Masters of Business Analytics program. As I said, my name is Tracy Rogers, and I'm a product marketing manager at Tableau, and we are really excited to have you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason.
Thanks, Tracy. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time during this webinar. I'm really excited to share what we've done at within Nationwide IT in terms of driving efficiencies through data and Tableau. So just a quick agenda for today. We just went through a nice introduction that Tracy gave. We'll be talking about Nationwide IT Portfolio's journey with Tableau and go through actually some journey and evolution, some of the reports that we've completed here. We'll also take a look at some successes and lessons learned through migrating over from Excel to Tableau. We'll talk about some of the next steps that we're using within Nationwide IT. And then we'll open it up for a little Q&A session at the end. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So just to give you guys a little bit of a background to level set where we're at. So Nationwide IT, unlike a lot of people when they think of an IT organization, they think of your typical people on the help desk or the people who stop by and help you when you have any sort of computer issues. But for a Fortune 100 company like Nationwide, IT is a very large organization. One of the main components of that would be what we call business service areas, or BSAs. And each one of these BSAs across our enterprise IT support a very specific business segment. So the one that I'm in supports commercial lines and agribusiness, and we have other BSAs across our enterprise supporting service areas like personal lines, claims, finance, HR, IT, etc. So we have 20 or so of these groups supporting these very specific business segments. Even though we have 20 or so different portfolio teams, we all really look at the same type of information. So one of the things is our data sources. We all commonly use and get our data typically from these two systems, our IT project management tool called Clarity, and then HP Quality Center, which we use to monitor defects. So again, regardless of which BSA that you're in, you're going to get a lot of your data sources from these two systems. Current state across Nationwide IT, we primarily use other tools to extract that data. Unfortunately, we do not have access right now to connect Tableau directly to these production databases. So current state, we are using tools like Business Objects and other means to pull manual extracts or automated extracts and do either a CSV file or an Excel file to get to the data. And again, because we're all very similar across Nationwide IT, these different BSA units we really have common goals and common data goals that we have. And the primary two that we have listed here are we're really in the forefront in terms of financial planning for our business areas, as well as workforce management. We want to make sure that we run the business of IT effectively, and those two components really help us achieve those goals. So that's a little bit of a background of what nationwide IT looks like from a portfolio perspective. Next, we'll take a look at, what does it look like driving the business of IT at Nationwide in that portfolio space. And again, using Tableau has been such a great benefit for us in terms of efficiencies and automation. But before we take a look at the evolution of some of our reports, I want to take a step back real quickly to talk about the three big things I like to think about when people ask, why Tableau? In my current business unit, I've been here for almost 3 years now. We didn't use Tableau before. So when we migrated over, these were the common themes or pillars that we talked about and why we wanted to switch over to Tableau. So the first reason here is going to be that Tableau is quick. Three reasons to use visual analytics tools like Tableau. And on the screenshot that we have here on the presentation, it is a simple bar graph. We have, it looks like sales over time by region. And Tableau has this nice feature called reference lines. And we have different average lines across each one of these. So at the very table on the left here, the average line spans across the entire table. In the middle, the average line goes across per pane, so each year has its own average line. And then on the far right-hand side, we have an average line per month or per region per year. To do something like this in Tableau is very quick. Within a couple of clicks, you're able to change how the reference line is calculated. Compare that to other tools that Tableau is a competitor with, Excel and others. Doing something like this might take, in Excel, you have to manually calculate the average line and then highlight the row of cells that you want. Then you have to do it again if you want to do it per year, and then again if you wanted to do it on a more granular level. So you have to do a lot of legwork involved in these other tools to do something that Tableau can do within a couple of clicks. So this is a very good use case of how Tableau is so quick to change your analysis on the fly rather than other tools that would take a lot more work. Other good examples in terms of how Tableau is quick, if you wanted to do something like a control chart with upper and control limits and a moving average line, all of these things are just a few clicks within Tableau. Tableau is quick to connect to data sources. It's quick to publish reports. It can handle a lot of different types of data very quickly and effectively. So just Tableau in general, regardless of, a lot of these BI tools, these modern BI platforms that we have now, generally speaking, they all can do very similar things. All of these applications can create a pie chart, they can create a line chart, they can create a bar chart. But generally speaking, and this is why one of the reasons I really love Tableau is that Tableau is going to, most of the time, it's going to do it quicker than its competitors, which is in terms of resource hours used to create these reports, that's a big win for us. We can create these reports at a faster pace than some of these other tools. So that's the first reason I like to think about why we want to use Tableau here at Nationwide IT. The second reason on this next slide here that has a screenshot of an error message in Excel. And I'm not sure if you can see it through the webinar platform here, but that error message says Microsoft Excel has stopped working. I'm sure many of you have seen this error message across your career. And the second reason why I like to talk about here is that Tableau is scalable. So in one of my previous roles, I was on the analytics team that supports our help desk, our IT help desk. And a lot of our data was very common to a lot of other units. We're looking at 13-month historical data, and everything was housed and contained within an Excel file. So we have our source data table. We have maybe a couple of tabs for pivot tables and charts and graphs. We have calculated fields, conditional formatting, things like that. Over time, 13 months of call history for our help desk, the Excel file was pretty large. It was over 100 megabytes in file size. So every time we would need to open the Excel file to make any updates, make changes, anything like that, we really had to cross our fingers that we wouldn't see this error message. That's the worst thing that could happen in the BI space is you're spending 20, 30 minutes on updating your Excel file, and then ultimately it crashes and you lose all of that work and you have to redo everything. So the nice thing about Tableau is during my time with that help desk analytics team, we did go through a proof of concept with Tableau, and that's when Nationwide actually first started to use Tableau. So we migrated a lot of our reports to Tableau, and that same information, the same 13-month historical data that was over 100 megabyte file size in Excel translated into about a 10 megabyte file size in a Tableau workbook. Not only is the file size smaller, which is easier to work with, in terms of making updates, making changes, making new graphs with that exact same data set, Tableau can handle much more effectively. So when you have a cross tab of information, a line graph of trending information, Tableau can make those changes without having to worry about the application crashing, which is really nice. So again, regardless of your data set that you work with, is 5 rows or it's 5 million rows, Tableau is going to be very easy to work with, and you don't have to lose any hair in worrying about if any sort of work loss is going to happen, because Tableau is going to be able to handle that file size and any type of data source that you throw at it. That's the second reason I really like to use Tableau. The third reason here is that, obviously we're talking about visual analytics platforms like Tableau. My third reason is that Tableau is visual. Ironically, this is probably the least visual PowerPoint slide you'll ever see, but we kind of set that up purposely because these next few slides will kind of cover the evolution of one of our main reports. So one of the reports, one of the big reports that we have in the IT portfolio space, when we talked about, a few slides ago around the main data questions that we need to answer, one of them was around workforce planning. So we need to know capacity and demand for our different software development agile lines, our resources to know, how much are they available to work, what are they allocated to, so we can make financial planning more accurately and make sure that we have the right people doing the right work. So when we first started, and this is back in late 2014, here's our capacity and demand report. And I'll kind of walk you through what this means here. And again, this is all Excel-based at the time. So the left-hand column has all of our different agile development lines. So these are all the teams working in just my business unit. And then to the right of the table, we have the capacity minus demand across the future months. So ideally, in capacity and demand space, if you take capacity minus demand, that should be as close to 0 as possible. That means that we are planning accordingly. Our Scrum Masters or iteration managers understand how much their team is available work, and they know how much demand is to their team. So as close to 0 as possible is going to be the ideal situation here. And you can see here we have a lot of conditional formatting here on the right-hand side of the table. So we highlighted it. There's no highlight if it's within plus or minus 2 FTEs. We said that was kind of our within range boundary. If it's above 2 FTE, that's going to be highlighted in yellow, and that means that team is that team is underbooked. That they actually have capacity, too much capacity. They don't have enough work to their line. And then if it's under -2, we highlighted that in red, showing that that team is overbooked. They don't have enough capacity to do the work that's allocated to them. You can see this text table, this crosstab visualization. It works. It's not the easiest to consume. If you're if you're the Scrum Master over, let's say, this collective team, you have to kind of count the number of rows that you have to go over and then count the number of columns to get to the information that you need. But it was simple. The things that we didn't like about using Excel is, if you guys, I'm sure you know if you're in the IT space, is that our environment changes all the time. Change is the only constant that we have here. So if we have new agile development lines or they change their name or anything like that, we would have to manually update this table and then insert a row, and you have always somebody on your team that thinks that they know how to use Excel. They insert a row and it really just borks all of the calculated columns that you have. So it's just a lot of manual work when we needed to make changes based on new lines coming into our environment, name changes, etc. So that's what I jumped into in August of 2014. So having used Tableau for for about 6 years, I talked to my direct manager and said, hey, I think there might be an easier way to do this. This is a weekly report that took about 4 hours to complete. So we'd looked at Tableau as a solution. I had experience using it, so I said, let's go ahead and see what we can do. So this next slide here has kind of our next evolution of the report. So this is going to be in early 2015. We're using Tableau Desktop. We're using Tableau Server. But you can see the format and the visualization is in the very same style, in the same format. And we did that on purpose. We utilize what I call a lift and shift approach. So what that means is we essentially take the same type of visualization, we lift it from Excel to Tableau Desktop and Server. The reason that we wanted to do it that way is because a lot of people in my area were brand new to Tableau Server, consuming reports. They were used to going out to a SharePoint site or to a shared drive to download an Excel file or a PowerPoint deck. They weren't used to opening up a web browser to interact with data. So we wanted to make that transition process as smooth as possible. So if we change the type of visualization, that might be too jarring. So we wanted to keep the style in the same design language. And then as people became more comfortable using Tableau Server, then we could start to think about different ways, better ways to visualize the data. So you see here, very same thing here on the left-hand column. We have the agile development lines. And then the months across have the capacity minus demand figure. We have the same sort of conditional color formatting here. And again, the lift and shift approach, I'm not saying it's the best way, but it definitely worked for us as we transitioned over to Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server. So with that said, the next evolution, so what does this report look like now? We're actually going to go away from this PowerPoint, and I'm going to try to share my screen here, and hopefully nothing blows up here. So we'll take a look at this report, what it looks like, and then we'll also actually take a look at some of the other reports that we have available to us now. So this is the current state of the report. We're using Tableau Desktop right now to take a look at this. But you can see that, because we have people more comfortable using Tableau Server to consume their information, we're able to definitely change how we did this. So we now have a heat map style visualization here. We still have the standing team names, the agile lines on the left-hand side, but now we're using this heat map graph. And what this means is it's, people at a glance can easily identify where their team is in terms of are they overbooked or are they underbooked. So the size of the square represents the variance away from 0. So if it's a very large square, that means they're severely over or underbooked. If it's a very tiny square, that means they are very close to 0, which is a good thing. The color of the square also indicates whether or not, blue is going to be that they're overbooked, they have too much work. Orange is going to be that they're underbooked, they have too much capacity. So ideally here, people can take 2 seconds to glance at this table. If they see small gray squares, they're looking great from a capacity and demand perspective, that they are planning appropriately. And if they have any large colored boxes, either orange or blue, they can go ahead and actually click on their team name, and we'll go ahead and do that here. And actually, everything on the dashboard changes. So now they can still get to the details of the information without having to go to another report. And that's the great thing about using Tableau and having good dashboard design is, a lot of people, when they build reports and dashboards, it ultimately generates questions. It doesn't answer them. And that's the beauty about Tableau, is that we're able to not only answer those questions, but they know which action they need to take to go ahead and resolve it. So they can easily identify who is on their team, what work that they have available, just at a click of a button. So we have this detailed table on the bottom. We have this nice wave chart on the right-hand side, so they can see the black line going across the graph is their capacity, and then the wave chart is actually their demand, and it's color-coded to see, what type of work is it? Is it hard booked? Is it soft booked? Is it work that they might have to do, or maybe that they'll lose? So they can easily see, like most of the time this should be hard booked, so this blue color should be the majority for most people. But they can see like maybe they have some soft booked or soft new demand that they just received that they might not have known about before. And again, because we have the scalability of Tableau, these reports now on Tableau Server aren't just for my business unit. So we talked about the different 20 or so BSAs across nationwide IT. This report is actually available across the enterprise, so they can use this drop-down box here and select which BSA that they're in, and they can see their line. So if we take a look at my BSA here real quick, you can see that this is specifically for my business unit. These are all the teams doing work on project owned by my business area. So you can see that we're doing a really good job here overall in terms of matching our team capacity and our team demand. So that's the evolution of our capacity and demand report. I think we've done a great job. I think there's still work for us to do in terms of making insights easier to identify. But I think we've come a long way in such a short period of time. Remember the very first Excel graph that we had, that was as late as December of 2014 that we're using that. So under 3 years, we're able to have something as great as what we have now. And that's all due to the fact that we're using Tableau. So with that, we'll kind of go through a couple of other reports that we've created through Tableau. So this next dashboard that I have up here really isn't a dashboard in the general sense. It's actually a dashboard that we use to act as a reporting portal or gateway for new resource managers, portfolio leaders, scrum masters, project managers. They have one link that they can go to get to their reports. And this is just a simple dashboard that I created that lists all of our enterprise level reports, the name of the report. They can click on this arrow to go ahead and open it up. They know the cadence of the report, how often is it updated. They know the data source. They have a brief description of the report. So this is really nice. This is really making our data sources and our reporting transparent so they know exactly what they're getting into and how often that report is being updated. So all of these reports on this top section are enterprise-wide, so any one of the 20 or so different BSAs that we have here across enterprise IT at Nationwide can utilize any of these reports. Now we've just made a change recently, so we're actually letting other BSAs, if they have any sort of ad hoc analysis or anything that might be customized to their specific BSA, they have their own folder on our Tableau server site. So we created hot links here at the bottom. So if I'm somebody within our retirement plans BSA, and if they have a couple of reports that are just specific to their business unit, I can go here, click on this folder, and get a look at their reports as well. So this portal acts not only as a gateway to all of our enterprise-wide reporting, but any of our customized reporting as well based on the different BSA audience, which is really nice to have. And again, this is just a simple dashboard. This is a one-tab dashboard that we created in Tableau. We've got some nice branding on the top right-hand side to let us know, hey, you work at Nationwide, which is really cool, and my contact information. This might, if you guys are thinking about doing this might get you into trouble because I'll get a lot of emails now. But I want to just make sure that this is available to everybody, and I love taking the time to answer anybody's questions. So that's our IT portfolio Tableau reporting portal. Again, just a simple thing to make things a lot easier for end users to consume their data. The next report we'll take a look at here is actually what we call our out-of-office report. And why that's such a big deal in the IT project management space is, so through our tool called Clarity, we have a certain number of capacity hours and a certain number of allocation hours to a project. If we're gone on vacation, we know we typically take a few days off in November, December, and maybe during the summer months as well for a summer vacation. If we're not identifying that in our calendars, that means that their capacity is going to be artificially inflated, which means that if they're going to be allocated at the same number of hours, that business unit, that project is going to say, if that business unit area wants to say, how much are we spending in 2017, they're going to get a dollar amount that's actually too high. It's artificially high. It's because people haven't updated their calendars in Clarity. So this is a simple report that lets us know, hey, who hasn't really been managing their calendars? And we see here that we just have a simple heat map style visualization again here. And anybody who hasn't taken time off any given month is going to be this dark orange or this burnt orange color. And if they have maybe just a few hours, they might be shaded a little bit lighter here. So we can easily see and go through this list. Most of our team and most of my business area, we have it filtered just on my specific BSA. Generally speaking, we're doing a pretty good job. We see a lot of people taking time off, roughly anywhere from a day to a week off in December for the holidays. Same for November around Thanksgiving. We see a lot of people going in there. And again, it doesn't, a lot of people question, well, I don't know which exact day I'm going to be gone. That doesn't really matter. We just want to know if you're typically gone for a couple of days, get that out there to your calendar. So we can easily see, hey, like this person only has a couple of hours off. Maybe we need to go to their manager and let them take a look at that. You know, this person here doesn't have any hours off in December, things like that. So we can easily see just by a glance here. And again, because this is available across the enterprise, any of our BSA teams can go ahead and use this. So we can filter on BSAs. If I'm a specific resource manager and I just want to see my team, we can use that drop-down box. And then conversely, if I'm a project manager and I want to know who working on my project might not be taking time off or doesn't have that indicated in their calendar, if I'm a PM, I can select my name here as well. There's a lot of different ways we can slice and dice this data. And again, that's all available because we're able to use Tableau Connect to a larger data source. So this is a really nice tool. This has been very well received. And that just lets us easily identify who we need to reach out to update their calendars in our Clarity system. Again, this is just a simple one tab report, which is really nice. So that's our second report that we have. The next report I want to take a look at is more around our defect data, something that we've just gotten into, I would say a little bit less than our Clarity project management data. So this is a simple line chart here. This is showing the total number of defects detected for my business unit. Again, we have our ability to filter on different BSAs here. But this is a simple line chart. And you think about all the different types of visualizations out there that Tableau can do. Some of them get pretty freaky. You can have like different like reference lines and different styles of charts. And sometimes for audience members that might not be well versed in the BI or data visualization, you can lose consumers because they don't know and they get intimidated by the graph. But you know, this is a simple line chart. I think most people understand how to read a line chart, but this is a line chart that has much more information here than just the number of defects. So you can see here obviously the line trending over time. So this is time series analysis. We have just the number of defects detected on that date or that week. Or this is by month, excuse me. And then we actually have some other pieces of information here. So the color of the line, you can see we have some orange here, some blue here. The color is going to represent the number of policies or the number of customers impacted. So if it's going to be kind of a lighter gray information, that's a medium number. If it's blue, that means not a lot of customers were impacted. If we have this bright orange here, that means a lot of customers were impacted by that defect. And then the size of the line also represents the financial impact, the number of dollars impacted here. So now, knowing that information here, instead of just having a simple line chart, we can see here we had a big issue back in April of 2015. It was only six defects, and that's not the max by any means. We've got 9 here in June. We have 10 across a couple of months. But now because we have the power of a good data visualization here, we know that this is a big issue for us. We had a lot of customers impacted because it's a dark orange color, and we had a huge financial impact. And same here for this month in May. Not as much financial impact, but really a number of customers was greatly impacted here as well. So we have a lot more information here, and we just have one visualization for it. And again, because we have the power of dashboard actions here, if I click on any one of these data points, we can kind of see the row level detail of what those defects were. So here are the 6 defects that I clicked on, and we can kind of drill down further. So again, we're answering questions, and we're not just generating questions. So we can see the defect level information here, which is really nice. So again, a simple line chart with a text table, but it's going to allow us to answer those questions on the fly rather than having to set up another meeting just to interpret the data that we're looking at here. This is a graph that we actually just created a few weeks ago that I'm really proud of because I think this is just quintessential use of Tableau here, doing a line chart like this. The next graph and the final graph that we'll show here is another defect graph. And again, this is just a simple control chart. So we have standard deviation, we have our upper and lower control limits, and we have an average line. And the number of defects here is actually just going to be around our critical and high defects. So if you take a look at the priority or the severity of a defect, we have low, medium, high and critical. So the high and critical ones are the ones that we really want to take a look at and see how we're trending here. So again, we have no filter set right now. So we are looking across on the entire enterprise here, and it's all grayed out. Let me just select one here now. Oh, it's grayed out. Anyway, you can see here on this line chart that we have these reference lines that just took a couple of clicks to add. But then we also have the trend. So obviously the line itself represents the number of defects, but then we have this color coding here. I know it's a little bit shaded out here for some reason, but we can color code these dots to represent some sort of trends or anomalies in the data. So we wanted to identify whether we saw 2 months or 3 months of trending. So if we see 2 months of increase here, so we have 264 here in September, 279, 293. So we have 2 months now in a row. So we highlighted this yellow. The next month is 305. So now we have 3 months of increasing trend. That's going to be highlighted red. So just again, because we just have a simple calculation here to identify if we're trending in any certain direction up or down, if we saw any sort of trend down, would actually be highlighted green because that's a good thing for us. But again, just a simple calculation change lets us to easily get those trends, and we can easily see that maybe the end of 2016, early part of 2017 was kind of a bad portion for us because we have just a continuously increasing trend of critical and high defects. That is the few graphs that I wanted to share with the group. I hope you guys saw some insight or saw something new that you can bring back. But that's I'm pretty proud of what we've done. So we'll go ahead and actually kill the screen share now and go back to the presentation. So the next thing here, we talked about the evolution of a lot of our reports in Tableau, and a lot of people are curious to know, what's your return on investment? Obviously, there is an investment required in Tableau Desktop and Server. There is a fee associated with getting a desktop license, and our leaders wanted to know, what kind of return are we getting on that? So, these are just a few things that we gathered after our first year of using Tableau. So this is at the end of 2015. We measured and calculated just on the reports that we were doing. This doesn't include new reports that we were able to create. But just on those initial set of reports, we saved over 800 annual resource hours using Tableau Desktop and Server. So we got rid of all of that manual work that we had to do in Excel. We got that over to Tableau. We automated things on Server to schedule extract refreshes and everything. Again, over 800 annual resource hours. That's a huge chunk of money for us. In addition to that, we saw an increased efficiency and velocity gain. So again, because you're getting rid of manual tools like Excel, we're able to create things more effectively, more efficiently. And what that does is it allows us to be more fast in terms of how can we create new reports, how can we make updates to existing reports. All is made faster because of the switch over to Tableau. And the final thing on the return on investment, we have an increased scope. So now, like we said, a lot of our reports now are available not just for our BSA specifically, but they're available across the entire enterprise. So we have because of the scalability of Tableau, we're able to increase our scope. We're not just looking at project level data for our BSA. We can look at project level data, defect level data, incident tickets to our agile lines all across the enterprise. Because we have the power of Tableau, which is a really cool thing. We can really make a pretty big impact from a reporting and analytics perspective using Tableau because we have the vision now. We don't have such a narrow vision on the analysis that we need to do. We can take a step back and take a look at the bigger picture across enterprise IT. So those are, we looked at some of our reports that we've created. We looked at the return on investment. The next section here, I want to take a few minutes here just to talk about some of our successes and lessons learned. So some of the successes that we've seen, again, we've been using Tableau now for almost 3 years in my current team. Better metrics leads to better decisions. So we have Tableau. We have the ability to create these metrics. We have a good dashboard design. perspective, and we're able to create better decisions because of that. So, we're going from gut-based decision-making to data-driven decision-making, and using Tableau versus Excel, we have, more trustworthy data, and we have better metrics because of it. The next success that we have here, increased visibility. We have a lot of visibility, not from kind of two different ways. We have increased visibility from a data source perspective. People are more cognizant of the different fields available in Clarity. So maybe, whether it's in Clarity or Quality Center, we now know that, hey, there's a lot of different dimensions. We have a lot of different attributes. Maybe we can do some trending analysis on that. And we haven't done that before because the data just wasn't either available or just wasn't really socialized that we have these number of dimensions available. And then another aspect in terms of increased visibility, people are becoming more aware. They're becoming more data cognizant. They understand what we can do with data and reporting through Tableau, and they want more of it. So they want to increase their scope. They want to increase the volume. And they want to make better decisions because they know that's going to be something that's available now in Tableau that it wasn't available before using some other tools. Another success for using Tableau, we're more agile and we have more customizability. Tableau is leading the charge in terms of the self-service analytics space. So instead of depending on a different reporting team to do that for us within IT, we're able to do that as portfolio coordinators. So if somebody needs to make a change, so all of the 7 or 8 different enterprise-wide reports that we showed you on that portal before, somebody sees, hey, I need to make a change. Can you make that color change, or can you add this to the label? We can make those changes, within a matter of seconds, not a matter of weeks or days. Having to send a ticket to another reporting team. We want to make those customizability changes. We want a very specific view. Again, with the power of Tableau, how it's quick to connect to the data, how it's quick to create the visualizations. We can do that, much more efficiently than with other tools, and having to rely on another IT reporting team. And the final success here that I can mention, speed of market. Again, it's just so much easier and faster to build these reports. If somebody wants a brand new report, let's say we want a different trend on defect data, or we're looking at different project allocation data within our Clarity tool, we can get that report out there within a matter of hours or days, not weeks or months, because of how quick Tableau is to work with data. So these are 4 big successes that we've had that I hope you guys have seen in your organizations as well. Some of the lessons learned that we have, something, and hopefully you guys have some good takeaways here. As we continue to use Tableau, and obviously the more you use Tableau and the more you socialize it, you can see that grow. And we've seen Tableau grow across nationwide IT exponentially. People see the power of it, and they want to get their hands on it. They want to be able to use the power of Tableau. And with that, you have more users. Ultimately, there's going to be a need for some type of reporting governance or reporting framework. And what I mean by that is, we have all these people getting their hands dirty with Tableau, which is a great thing, but then you just run the increased chance of people doing the duplicative work. They're using inconsistent data sources, or you build reports and you don't know, you don't have some sort of audit trail, so you don't know, is it being used? Maybe we should make changes to the report, or maybe even retire the report in general, because you have so many people getting their hands on with Tableau. So having some sort of reporting governance or reporting framework, I think, is really key to make sure that you don't, if you don't have that, within a matter of months, it'll be a nightmare to try to clean up and kind of pull the reins in on that. Another lesson learned that we've had here is, dashboard design acumen. Things to think about in terms of pre-designed questions, information discrimination, and dashboard design. There's kind of a double-edged sword with Tableau. It's so easy to use. It's so easy to pick up and use. You get people who are brand new to either BI or data visualization using it. And the trouble you might see with brand new users is that ultimately their final product that they publish to server doesn't look the best. And it's really difficult for end users to consume the information and to make a decision. And the bad situation that could be in is if you have a business unit who is brand new to Tableau, and they're, maybe should we use Tableau or MicroStrategy or Power BI or any of the other competitors to Tableau. They see this really poor dashboard. That leader might say, well, I don't want to use Tableau because it doesn't look very good. I can't get the information that I need. That wasn't really Tableau's fault. Maybe it was more how the person created the dashboard. And you really don't want to see that. You don't want somebody to make a decision to another tool just because the dashboard was poor. So that's something to think about, making sure that the more people use Tableau, that they're getting training on terms of making good dashboard design. And again, the third lesson learned here that we talked about earlier today, the lift and shift approach. It made our transition from Excel to Tableau very easy. It might not be the best approach, but it's something that we used. And we had a high level of success. It really kept the transition to Tableau server for our end users, especially when you have users who aren't data experts, they're not data people, but they need to consume the reports. Tableau server might be a little bit jarring on its own, but making the reports look and feel similar to what they had in Excel really helped that transition out a lot. So those are the lessons learned that we have, and that's pretty much all of what I have today. The last thing I really want to talk about here are the next steps. So we talked about kind of our evolution with Tableau to date, and what is Nationwide IT looking for in the next few months. So the inputs, some of the things that we're working on, we're consolidating our server sites, so IT portfolio, again, those 20 different BSA groups. We have 2 or 3 different server sites available. That doesn't really make any sense, so we're going to try to consolidate how many server sites that we have to minimize confusion for people. They don't know which link that they need to go to. We're migrating some of our data marts. So we have business objects now. We have access to an Oracle data mart. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll actually create certified data sources. So we'll take some of those data marts, make any changes that we need to, any of the joins or the calculations, and then republish those as Tableau server data sources. And then one of the inputs, the next things that we're working on is maybe identifying, we kind of have these report writers dispersed across different groups. Maybe not from an HR organizational perspective that they're a team, but at least have some sort of working concept of a enterprise reporting team to kind of help drive communication, share best practices, things like that. With those next steps involved some of the outputs. Again, we've kind of harped on these concepts throughout today's webinar. We're going to have consistent data sources. We're going to have a consistent design language. It's going to be easy to aggregate the data at different levels. And hopefully we have more interactive reporting. The next step of our reporting, has some sort of what-if analysis or something like that to really kind of take the next step. We have, I think, a really great interactive visualizations right now, but there's always something better for us to take a look at, and that what-if analysis is hopefully one of the outputs of our next steps here. So with that said, that's all I have. So thank you so much for taking the time to join this webinar. I really hope, at least if one person gained some sort of information or might be able to bring something back to your organization, that's going to be a win in my book. So again, thank you much for taking the time to listen, and we'll open it up to some Q&A.
Thank you, Jason. That was awesome. We've got a lot of questions flooding in. So I picked up on a couple themes. First, maybe you can just help us set the stage in terms of, how many people at Nationwide are using Tableau, and maybe specifically in your IT org in terms of both Tableau server, but really how many people have Tableau desktop licenses as well?
That's a great question. So at Nationwide, so across the entire organization, both IT and the business side, we actually have an enterprise license for the server. So anybody who has a Nationwide user ID, any Nationwide employee essentially, would have access to go to a server site to consume the information. And that really helps us out because we do have, in some areas, we might have somebody in the business needing to look at an IT report, so there is some of that cross-pollination, if you will, of how we need to access the data. Specifically within IT, and overall, we have about, I want to say 250 to 300 desktop license users across the company. In terms of what we see in IT, I would guess that the majority, I would say roughly half, will be in IT. We actually do have a good number of desktop license users in the business side, and I think that's what Tableau is really meant to do, is to get into the hands of non-IT associates. But I would say that roughly the 250, 300, we have half that are based in IT.
Awesome. We have a lot of questions about data. So one big one that seems to be coming up is, well, maybe you can talk about, of those dashboards you showed, what were the different data sources, and were most of them connected live or extracts?
Yeah, so I would say the majority of the reporting that we do from an IT portfolio perspective is going to come from Clarity. Now we do have a data mart being built with one of our IT teams. Unfortunately, it has other types of data. It has the defect data from Quality Center. It has ServiceNow data to get some of those incident tickets and request tickets, but unfortunately it doesn't have Clarity yet. It should have that information by the end of the year. Current state, what we're doing is we unfortunately cannot connect Tableau directly to the Clarity production databases. So we do have to utilize a tool like Business Objects to schedule Excel files or CSV files out from Business Objects to a network share drive, and then we connect Tableau directly to the CSV or the Excel files. And in terms of the framework of how we use Tableau Desktop, and I think a lot of people who've used Tableau for a while on this webinar will probably agree that we need to use extracts with live connected data. Even if it's a smaller data set, you might have issues with performance once you publish it, things like that. So we always save our workbooks as TWB files, and then we also save the Tableau data extract file, the TDE file, on the network share as well. So what we do is we automate that whole process. So we automate the extracts from Business Objects to the shared drive. Those get outputted around anytime between 4 and 7 a.m. And then our Tableau server will go ahead and start to run the refresh for the extracts between 8 and 9 in the morning. So everything is, most of our reports are fully automated, even though it's kind of that, we're using Business Objects as sort of a middleman at this time. Hopefully, with that data mart coming up, we won't need to use that anymore.
Awesome. Let's see. Our next question is, so you talked about the lift and shift approach for bringing Excel over to Tableau, or maybe I'm saying that wrong. But how have you seen any value of that? How have people kind of adopted that, and did that approach seem to work for you and for Nationwide?
I think that approach has a lot of success rate to it. I'm not sure. Again, a lot of people, when they transition reports, regardless of what the original medium was, whether it was an Excel, an Access database, a PDF file, you name whatever your reports were in before you used Tableau, having that lift and shift approach made that transition easier for us. When your audience for your reports is a wide range, you have people who are more data focused, data minded, and you have some leadership that might not be very familiar with how to work with data and to consume those reports. Making a drastic shift not only from the tool that you're using, but then also the platform or the look and the feel of it. Let's make that transition as easy as possible. So that lift and shift approach, having that same look and feel. So when they went to Tableau Server to consume their capacity demand reports, they weren't jarred with some really weird visualization. They saw something that they were familiar with. And I think, having that ease of transition really helped us get people to buy into Tableau, because, that's across different organizations, Tableau Desktop and Server, that's an expense. And you might not get a lot of buy-in if they're completely jarred with the new visualization. So it got buy-in. People said, yeah, this is working. We can still get the information. And then you give them time to get familiar with using Server. Then you start to bring it in terms of, hey, here's a better way to visualize things. And I think having that buy-in, using that lift and shift approach, made kind of the long run of using Tableau in terms of building better ways to visualize the data that much easier to do, because they were on board with the tool itself.
So going down the line, or maybe you already have one, someone asked a great question is, do you have have you created some sort of dashboard style guide or standard or best practices so that as more people are developing dashboards, the organization as a whole can start to kind of see and understand kind of expectations for what they're looking at?
Yeah, I think that's something that we definitely want to have within the IT portfolio space. We don't have anything concrete in terms of consistent design language or design guidelines. We actually do see some of that already in some of our other areas. I know on the business side, our commercial analytics team has done a really good job of getting some sort of like quick reference guides or how-to documents or guidelines out there. And I think that's something that we definitely want to leverage. So we might actually, instead of just creating our own, we might take a look at what other areas, what they've been doing in terms of what they want to do with a dashboard style or dashboard design guideline. Obviously, without having something written up just from a personal perspective, I'm a big fan of Stephen Few's books on dashboard design. If anybody hasn't looked into those books yet, I highly recommend it in terms of what to do and what not to do. And I think if you just follow that, something like a Stephen Few, you'll create something that's going to be worthwhile and it's going to be easy to consume. So regardless of what type of color schemes that you have and consistent headers or footers that you need from a company perspective, at least your dashboards are going to be easy to read. But that's something that we definitely want to take a look at in the next 6 months.
Awesome. I think we have time for one or two other questions. So here we've got one. Do you have any tips on how to get people to use Tableau to create visualizations? So maybe people on your team who are maybe hesitant to use Tableau Desktop, how do you encourage them to start analyzing the data themselves?
I think it's kind of a twofold approach with people who are, because obviously when people see Tableau, either if they're looking at a desktop file or if they're consuming reports on server, I think it's so easy for people to get on board and say, this is a really cool tool when they see the power of what Tableau can do compared to other BI tools. So my suggestion to a lot of new people would be, one, getting used to, making sure that you understand the concept of what data is. People kind of, they want to see, things at a summary level and an aggregated level, and they want to see the details, and they don't really understand the concepts of how data is structured. So if they're not familiar with that type of concept, I think that that's something that would really help them out, because you can't all of a sudden have weekly trend data if your data is only set to monthly, if that's your lowest level of detail from a time perspective. So if people don't understand that, they might just say, well, Tableau can't do it, so I don't want to use it. The second thing would be that, looking at the user interface, Tableau is so easy to use. There's very little to no programming involved. You don't need to be a SQL master or anything like that. But when you first open up, the user interface can be a little intimidating because it's sort of like this blank slate that you can kind of do whatever you want with, and people really don't know where to start. So the two things that I like to tell people from just using the tool perspective is, one, use the show me function, especially with people who are brand new to kind of the BI space and creating visualizations. I think that show me tool is extremely valuable. And then the second thing I always tell people is, if you're familiar with Excel pivot tables, you're going to be familiar with how to use Tableau, because the concept of how a pivot table works, you have rows and columns and filters and measures, is exactly the same in Tableau. It just looks different. So once you know where to put things, you realize that it's really taking an Excel pivot table type format and just making it better. So if people are familiar with Excel, they'll pick up Tableau pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that is definitely true. And there's so many resources out online, so if you're ever just getting started, just doing a quick search can help. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think that we have one other question. Well, we have a lot of other questions, but maybe this is a little bit of a broader topic from like the IT org, but can you talk a little bit about your approach to governance and framework, and kind of what was your starting point and any issues or challenges that you are currently facing or have faced in the past?
I think the one issue that we're facing right now is we didn't have a governance or a framework set up initially. So once we have more users, more creators using the same Tableau server site, but we have that inconsistency of people maybe using different data sources, they're publishing reports differently, and if we had that governance or that framework to begin with, we wouldn't have that issue now. Fortunately, we haven't been using server in my current team for very long. It's only been about a year and a half. So we haven't had too much to clean up, if you will. But we really want to get that in place because we've sort of consolidated Tableau server sites. We had my BSA, we had our own server site, and we had a couple of other BSAs with their own. So we're actually merging that all together to use the one that we started with. So that means that we need to get that framework started really quickly to make sure that the biggest thing is we don't want people doing duplicative work. I mean, if you have the capacity demand report, number one, you don't want to see a capacity demand report. Number two, if it's doing the exact same thing, we don't need to see the same report. So, hopefully what that governance is going to look like is going to identify who's a content creator, who is a report writer, what type of data that they're using, what their data source is, and then what kind of content are they publishing out to the server. And then, meeting about once a month to share best practices. Maybe they're doing something really cool that's just specific to their BSA, and maybe we can push that to the enterprise. And then just making sure that the reports that we do have published on server are being used, and doing some sort of audit process around, do we have duplicative reports out there? Do we have reports that aren't being used? And, taking the necessary action after that.
Put myself on mute. Yeah, I think that is definitely a challenge that I think a lot of people run into. So hearing that you guys are in the throes of it, I think is what's the word I'm looking for? Helpful for other people. Well, I think that is about all we've got for questions. Jason, I can't thank you enough. This was an amazing presentation. I think lots of people can hopefully go out and start using Tableau in their own organizations, especially in their IT organization. So thank you for sharing your story. We really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thanks, Tracy. And if anybody's going to be at the conference in October, come say hi.